Welcome to the 12 Days of Zentangle, Project Pack number 22. This is day 5.
Hi, I'm Maria.
And my name is Rick. And we're going to take you on another spiraling adventure.
Ooh, and spiraling in the best of ways.
In the very best of ways. And again, I'm going to use all of my toys and tools here. Forgot my pencil to show you. And if you are just happen to be coming in on this video first, let you know we've got a introductory video that sort of sets the stage for all of this. And,
right, and you really should kind of watch that to get the most out of this particular
adventure.
Lesson. Yeah.
Now, this lovely spiral goes like from one spiral, and that it's almost like its own little takeoff and land.
Yes.
Here. It goes from one side to the other. And I'm going to really build off of this spiral by restating the string line that's been printed on here. And you'll notice that I turn my tile so that it's, for the most part, really the most comfortable for me to both see the line and to draw the line. So the idea is, your hand pivots on the heel of your hand. And in general, whatever I'm doing or whatever the approach in Zentangle is that we move the tile under our hand and just keep ourselves the most comfortable. So I'm going to add some more spaces within which to tangle, and I'm going to take off. I'm going to sort of aura that other line for a bit, but I'm going to aim for the corner. And feel free to, pause, rewind. And,
do an airline.
Do an airline.
Airline first a couple of times to get your hand ready for that kind of journey.
Yeah. And again, I'm going to take off. I'm going to come to the edge, just a little bit of curve there. And you'll see the intent here is to set up a framework.
Oh, you know what it looks like?
What?
It looks like a script X. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm all about lettering, so that's what I see.
Now I'm just taking a note of where the phi proportion is from the other side as a reference, because this next stroke I'm going to sort of aim. Generally, I'm not going to get fastidious about it, but just have that in mind. Take off. I'm just going to curve out roughly where that Fibonacci place might be. Since this is all partially about phi, and a lot of the spirals have that phi substructure to them.
It's really pretty, right?
Right? So isn't that fun? Now I'm going to take my O1 pen.
And is this black again?
Yep, yeah. This is the black. And we're going to play with fragments and reticula on this particular tile. And
I love fragments and reticula.
Right?
I think that it's a never-ending journey. You do the slightest little thing inside a square, and as long as you repeat it, it's beautiful.
And not only that, is that if the squares aren't really square, you can still figure out exactly how they distort into that, like that one on the left.
You know how to distort. Isn't that fun?
So in these spiraling bands, I am putting in squares or square-ish straight lines that make a square-ish as much as possible, and just making them proportional. As it gets smaller, the squares will get smaller. And then we're going to go back into them and put in fragments. And in our first primer book, we have a really extensive chapter on fragments and reticula, and a lot of options and ideas and inspirations. And this is a really basic one. And when you play with this, you'll like, oh, one simple tangle or fragment can make many, many different shapes. So I've got all of my little squares in there. This is looking pretty cool.
It's very cool.
Like
it's all
antlers, like growth segments on an antler.
What wasn't the first thing I would have thought of? But
Well,
okay,
we'll
I'll
go
go
with
with that. Difference between male and female.
Right. Now I am putting an orb in the middle of one, and then for this side, I'm going to come off that orb or take off from that orb in a counterclockwise way.
So I don't think clockwise, but I think number 9.
Okay, so number 9. So we're doing number 9s. And now with digital clocks, it's almost, you don't see clockwise that much anymore.
Right.
So with that set up, I'm going to put those orbs in each one of these reticula.
So you can see Rick is proportioning the orb to go with the size of the square so that also reflects the size difference and the shape.
Yep.
And you might do that automatically, but if you don't, you just, consider it.
Yeah, and now they're getting so small that, I'm just putting little dots in there. Okay. Now that we've got all of those orbs, we're going to put in those number 9s or those takeoff in the counterclockwise way. And I turn my tile every time. And you don't have to, but I like the idea that the strokes all look the same. And if I make a stroke in the same way using the same muscles, now see you got that little meta shape there, that what do you call that, an hourglass-ish?
So when I'm doing it, I do the number 9s on each of the squares in that position so that I'm not turning my tile every time, but I'm turning it for that stroke.
Now, I thought about doing that, and then I went back and forth because I sometimes do that. But on the next one, it won't work. So anyways, just think number 9 and think rotate your tile, even down to these little small ones, as silly as it might seem. And you just may be better at it than me because when I do it, I sometimes lose my place if I don't turn the tile. Same with when I do paradox. But speaking of paradox, this is a real interesting thing, is that shape, that which we are doing in each fragment, which is like a variation of well, is very similar to the logarithmic looking curve that happens when you do paradox. So a lot of overlap here in patterns. Okay, so now on the other side, big surprise. First the orb, and then just on this one, for starters, we know this drill, number 9 or counterclockwise. Turning my tile, taking your time, remembering to breathe. Don't have
wait. Don't do anything until Rick tells you.
Right? Okay, so now this one, here's where we get different. Remember, I used to go counterclockwise? Well, now we're going to go clockwise. Take off. Doing the exact same thing, but by going in the other direction, we create this mirror image of the fragment just next to it. And the cool thing is, you've got this other shape, that like fan shape, which is different from that hourglass shape. And on this side, we're going to do our regular, put in all of our orbs. And like Maria said, you can proportion it, you can distort it in the same way that each individual reticula is shaped. Okay, so that one went counterclockwise, this one goes clockwise. So the drill here is whatever the one was next to it, you're going to go the other direction on the one you're doing. And it just ends up making this lovely mirror. And it's the exact same fragment, but with a different meta pattern. Right? And then they sort of meet at the corner, so just like in a mirror. Remember to breathe, and you don't have to hold your pen too tightly. And again, what's really neat about this tile is it has it's sort of fractal, because the larger portions of the tile are these spirals, and then this whole tile is made up of similar spirals that create different, meta patterns. So we're getting all sorts of meta here. And really love each one of these strokes. That's all that's happening when you're doing it. Right, so that was going clockwise. This will go counterclockwise.
The pattern that this makes is like a leaf pattern. What would you call that?
It looks like a ginkgo.
A ginkgo biloba, yeah.
Right. And even in these little teeny tiny ones, I'm turning it until I don't really notice. I'm just doing lines, because the eye is going to fill it in and just make it work. So you don't have to be that precise down here.
Or you can.
Or you can. So isn't that cool?
Very cool. Very, very neat.
So now that we've got that basic structure, I'm going to go in and put something in that we call rounding. And Maria does this a lot on her tiles, particularly like embedded letters.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going into the little nooks and just, it's like if there was a liquid or
interstices.
Yeah, like something was settled in there, and it's like the little, the scoop of the liquid, the meniscus or
so
whatever.
If this was a three-dimensional piece and you were going to clean it, you would clean it as best as you could, but there would be always something in the cracks, right, and the crevices.
Or like putting grout in or something with your finger. And what's happening here is it's giving a little bit of solid color and a little bit of drama.
Strength to the lines, where they're soldered in. It almost looks like if you've done soldering on stained glass or anything like that, you would solder in those areas and it would automatically fill in. It doesn't matter that you try it or not. That's what it would do.
Oh, that's really good, because it's less likely that these will fall apart.
Right.
Right?
That's right. So we don't want them to fall apart.
Right.
Any of you that think that yours are going to fall apart now, nope. Now they're in there for good.
I mean, imagine coming in, you're like, wait a second, my lines just fell apart. They're all over the tile.
Don't listen to anything we're saying. But it's having this almost like a spinning star look, right?
Yeah. A pinwheel.
Which, adds to now the one above, the first one you did, almost looks like that. Was it an aperture on a camera?
Yes.
That opens and closes?
Like the f-stop leaves, yeah. So now you've got like spirals within spirals, and
Yeah, I think you could probably see the difference in the pattern one to the other if you really concentrate on it.
So on one side, I'm picking up on this particular side the that lovely light teal, really creamy jelly roll. And what's interesting, you'll notice I'm not. You can leave a little gap there because I don't want to go over the black line.
Yeah, so you don't go anywhere near it.
Yeah, so I don't really obsess about it either way, but one of the characteristics of this is if you just lightly touch it to the paper, it leaves like this lovely little, well-fueled dot, and it works great there.
It's different from a micron because
Yes.
A micron wouldn't make that
Right.
dot. Right?
And using these pens, these jelly rolls, it's almost like the lighter the touch, the more comes out. And I'm sort of like just touching the paper. And
I just want to add in
Yeah.
here, but you notice that he turned the towel so that his hand isn't on top of those green or turquoise-looking orbs there, because they take time to dry,
Yeah.
unlike a micron.
Yeah, and that is a really good point on this. Using the jelly rolls is keeping your hand
Away from
it.
always.
Right? So we're working with contrast here, or I'm working with contrast, and the idea that how well these two colors go together.
Well,
How well, yes, I like that.
so now watch carefully what he's doing here.
'Cause I want to take this and emphasize the meta patterns. So I'm going to use the color in this jelly roll, and like we were saying, the light touch, and then you're just sort of spreading it around. It's like you've got a trowel, and whatever it is just keeps filling up underneath the trowel, and you just move it around. And I'm not trying to obscure that line, because I sort of really like the idea that you're seeing the underlying structure, the pentimento, and then you see the overlaying different shapes of patterns, or the meta patterns that form depending on how you put the very same reticulate together. I mean, the very same fragment together. And again, just appreciate this even this filling in is not, it's not something to rush. It's something to savor and, really appreciate the interaction of the pen and the ink on this paper. And right down to the end there. Okay. So you can really see those meta patterns. Cap my pen. And I bet you can guess what we're going to do on the other side.
So those ginkgo shapes are what you're aiming at on this side.
Yeah. And just, I'm still turning my tile for, whatever's easiest for me, because I want to see the line that I want it on the other side of my pen to the extent that's practical. And at the same time, being careful not to, stick my hand in the wet cement, as it were. And then just fill this all in. Right?
Now look for that ginkgo shape.
Right. And so this one would be, so like if you look at on each fragment, what we've done is fill in the color of one, skipped one, because there's like 4 sections around that inner circle, and we're filling in the color on every other one. And it just turns out this really cool emphasis of the meta pattern. Yep, make make sure I'm holding it where it's, there isn't any not yet dry jelly ink. And just, again, a light touch with this. And then you sort of imagine where it would be. Go around there. And now that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got these nice alternating events going on. And there's these lovely triangle shapes here. And you'll see I'm alternating as much as possible. So now on the side where the meta patterns were in that like ochre color, I'm going to fill in that triangle shape with the teal color. And even here I'm leaving my right hand steady in the same place all the time and just moving the tile so I'm comfortable and moving the tile under my hand.
I just want to remind you that once you see what Rick is doing, you can stop the camera and go at your own pace, because we sort of liven up so you're not watching every little line.
And we mentioned before, in this particular project pack, I think we got carried away because we want to do this, and we want to do this, and want to show you this, and so many things that this is a really lengthy project pack, and please don't think you have to finish it every day.
Not only that, but you don't have to finish it at our pace.
Right, exactly. Yeah. This is meant to be savored.
And that's the thing. When you're coloring in even those big triangles that he just did, really take your time. Don't rush through it. Feel good about it.
And speaking of taking your time, that little rotation thing that I did there on the video was to remind you that I let this dry overnight. I didn't just go into putting things on top of the jelly roll. Now you might be able to, but I chose to go overnight. So,
right. I mean, an hour would probably be enough.
Yeah, depending on your humidity. But just you want to make sure that it's dry enough to do what I'm doing here, which is getting pretty heavy with. I think it's the ochre.
Yeah.
The lighter of the two chalk pencils. So I'm adding some darker color to the ends of those.
And it's a subtle difference until you see the whole thing, and you'll see it's a more interesting composition than just
one solid color.
Right.
Yeah. So having done that, I've got the dark brown chalk. I'm just going to add a little bit of more at the end, and talk about subtle. You really don't even see it necessarily until what you said is you see them all together, and then we'll go back in with the tortillon and just smooth it all in. And again, we're just sort of inviting it, and circular motions for me tend to work really well with the tortillon, and holding it at a low angle.
It's giving it a stained glass effect. So if you had done this, cutting it in stained glass, it would automatically be brighter in the middle of the glass as opposed to the corners. Yeah.
Maria did a lot of stained glass work in the house, and so she's got that in her vocabulary. Now with the graphite pencil, I want to make these look rounded. So I'm going to put graphite on the edges of this band of fragments, and I'm pretty much putting it on the paper. If it gets over onto the
colors.
Onto the colors, That's okay, but
Yeah.
I'm really focusing on mostly getting it on the bare paper. And you'll see I'm again turning my tile, and I've got the point of the pencil towards the edge that I want to be, the most precise.
That's actually a really important thing because you don't have control the other way.
Yeah, you can't see it,
Yeah.
but here you can see exactly where it ends. And again, holding that pencil at a low angle allows you to use the whole side of the pencil.
Now you're going to use your tortillon that's all for graphite.
Yeah.
You don't want to use the same one as the brown. So be careful on that and realize that oopsies happen and they all end up being graphite tortillons. But for this particular tile, you want to keep that separate.
And you'll see as I'm doing this, I'm being very careful to not put the graphite all the way to the end.
How
of
pretty
that triangle.
is that? Isn't that
right?
beautiful? How rich, right? Beautiful.
Now, in using the tortillon, it sort of lightened up all of the graphite. So I'm going back in with just the pencil, and I'm holding it at a slightly higher angle to really redarken the very edge.
He's adding a little bit of love. He doesn't really go with that kind of, but that's where you're doing at this point.
Things I learned from you, babe. Right?
Yeah.
So, again, it's subtle, but it even more emphasizes that curve. So on this side, I'm just going in, adding like I guess you call it a low light to the top of the fan part of those leaves, or that fan. And then I'm getting I think this is the darker one, yeah. And I'm going to do the same thing with the darker, with the brown that I did with the graphite on the other one. And you'll see I'm holding this at a higher angle, partly because it's so long, you can't hold it, or I can't hold it in my palm, which is why we have those golf size pencils, so you can so easily hold it at a low angle.
Also, the chalk pencils are a little, they wear down faster, so it's not like a pencil that stays sharp from use.
And I actually like them to get a little blunt for exactly that reason. So you see here, we're doing the same thing, bringing it in towards the middle, but I'm being attentive to not cover that last little bit. So it forms like a highlight. All right. And I'm mainly using it on the paper, not so much on the color. And then I'm going back in with the black tortillon and just softening those low lights on the ginkgo leaves.
Where you can really see the shape, the rounded, almost like a braid you would put on really fancy chairs or something. Yeah.
Right. It would hold a tassel, right?
It would hold a tassel very nicely. You can see right where the spirals are that a tassel should be coming off those there.
That, right?
I'm a lover of tassels.
So I'm just going back a little bit with the white chalk, and I found the white chalk isn't it doesn't show up as much on the jelly roll.
Yeah.
But so, if you wanted to, and you had a jelly roll white, which wasn't in the project pack, you might play around with that. So now I'm going to get my brown 05, and on the side that has the ochre jelly roll background, and since this is all about spirals, we'll put down a series of printemps, those very basic spirals.
It's always nice to start in the middle because then you have this way of putting them behind in a hollabah fashion, coming off the middle, and it gives it a more interesting, I don't know. I mean, you can do it any way you want, but oftentimes when you're looking to do things, you sense just these little subtle changes that you make.
And you can see doing exactly that. And it allows you to nest them together really well. And just, again, a light touch with this. And if for any reason when you're using a micron to tangle on top of another inked surface, sometimes whatever is underneath, particularly chalk, can get in the tip. If you just go to a scrap piece of paper or the back of the tile and just move your pen around, you'll notice it basically, for the most part, always clears itself out. Yep. Okay, so that's one side. Now on the other side, cap my pen, I'm going to use the black 08 and do the exact same thing. Although, as I'm doing the voiceover, I just thought, if I'd thought about it, I would have done the spirals in the other direction on this side.
Oh, gosh. Really? Just because that's how you think.
Yeah.
He's very mathematical. He loves a challenge in terms of, well, what could I do to make this more difficult?
Or just more interesting, or like a little secret thing that maybe no one else would have noticed. So you might...
It's so Ricky.
So you might want to try that with yours.
Well, I'm going to say something next time you're flipping the fish in the frying pan.
Okay.
Don't try it
do
with
it the other way.
Do it the other way. Just for interest.
Right. But that's true. It's like you making the bed different every day.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Now, on the brown side, or on the side, with the brown, I'm just going to do a little bit of shading with the dark brown pencil. And in this case, I'm pretty much using I think I'm just using the pencil as its own, or the chalk as its own tortillon. And you can really do that a lot, even with the white. You can always go back in with the tortillon, but you'll see this, it's able to sort of feather itself out really nice. Okay, there's that. And then on this side, we'll use the graphite. And
you find you had to press pretty hard on top of the jelly roll.
Yep.
How pretty.
So we're coming together here. Now, looking at this, I thought, I just want to, give it, if it's a halo or integrate it into the background a little bit. So I'm just putting a little bit of the light ochre, the ochre chalk in the interstices and some other places, but mostly in the interstices. So it's like a version of rounding as shading, or shading as rounding. Instead of like I didn't want to color in the whole background necessarily.
So what was a good idea is that you do it in a little bit of it and see how you like it.
Right.
And if you could always add more, you can't take it away.
Right. And you might decide that you want to like go crazy with the background and add different things to it and different colors or different tangles. And
that ochre color is very rich and very beautiful.
And this is where sometimes, your tortillon picks up some graphite, but that's pretty cool because it adds a complexity to that single color. And I'm working pretty hard here and really pulling it out as far as I can. Turning my tile. And these tortillons work pretty well as long as you use them on their side.
Right. You don't want to use them on the tip.
Right. If you push down on the tip, it sort of collapses like a old antenna. And whatever's left over, just put it anywhere you want. And a lot of things like that little fill-in, you may not even notice it, but it softens the
contrast between the background and
just
the foreground.
a little bit.
Kind of makes it glow,
Mm-hmm.
right? Very
Cool.
nice.
Right?
Good job, Ricky.
Put our chop in. Do this little thing with 2 R's. And I tried to do a little bit of rounding in my chop, but it's like, it's a little too small, but there you go. Nothing ventured. But it's true, the rounding on those 4 sections really makes it look like it's spinning. So this is spirals within spirals within spirals, and hopefully it inspiraled you. So
I almost got it in there. I was going to say it's very inspiring.
Yes.
Inspiraling.
Okay, well, everybody, thank you for spending your time with us, and we look so forward to seeing what you do with this and the different ways you take it and what...
Can you imagine this in a mosaic with everybody's together?
Right.
Because the shapes that would take place are amazing. Amazing.
So please upload it to the app, and we'll see you tomorrow. Much love, everybody.
See you later.
Bye now.
Toodles.